students. I am Dr. Jason D. Arellano, your teacher in Practical Research 2. So, my task is to guide you regarding your data collection process or the collection of data for your research. I believe you are done with the following things. Isa-isahin natin: your title, the background of the study, the statement of the problem, assumptions, hypothesis, literature review, and your research designs. So we will be needing to gather your data for your actual research. Ngayon, what are the process or what is the required process for your data collection? So how will we start the data collection process? So, madali lang. Una, you need to go back to the research design, then decide on what data gathering instrument or tool to be used, then determine the type of sampling to be used, and lastly, determine the number of samples required. So, yun yung gagawin natin. Now, we'll start with the research designs. So, ano ba yung research design na ginamit ninyo sa inyong research? Okay, so is it experimental or a non-experimental type of research? Then, kung experimental ang ginamit natin, we have a control group and experimental group. As shown in the image here, makikita ninyo na merong dalawang tao. You have a placebo and you have a medicine. Yung isa, binigyan ng placebo or a drug which has no effect. Usually, chalk lang ang laman. And you have the medicine. Pwede rin, halimbawa, nag-aaral ka, you have a study about a fertilizer na inimbento, and then you will conduct an experiment. So, the first group will be given a fertilizer or a biofertilizer X, and then the next group is not given with a biofertilizer X, and then you will be comparing the data. Now, so in other words, when we talk about experimental research, it is guided by a hypothesis, and it is conducted with a scientific approach with using two sets of variables. Kagaya ng nasabi ko kanina, you have the control group and we have the experimental group. Now, there are two types of experimental research design. Ano yon? So you have the quasi-experimental and the true experimental research design. So I want you to look at this data. So the non-experimental, it measures the outcomes before and after the program for participants only. So mapapansin niyo that there is no comparison group pa lang kino-compare. Later on, maintindihan natin yan. So we have the quasi-experimental. It measures the outcomes for program participants and non-participants without a random assignment. So there is control for bias, and you have a comparison group. Now, when we talk about the experimental or the randomized control trial na tinatawag natin, randomized participants to treatment or control group, it measures outcomes for both groups as shown in the diagram below, okay, or the image. So mapapansin natin, okay, na yung pinagkaiba ng different types of research designs under the experimental. Now, when we talk about the non-experimental, it is a type of research where the data is not manipulated by the researcher. So, walang ginagawang data manipulation ng researcher dyan. So under this, we have the survey or the descriptive, we have the correlational, comparative, and the ex post facto. Mapapansin nyo na pinagsama ko yung survey at saka yung descriptive kasi pareho lang naman yun. Okay? Now, pag survey, of course, we are using questionnaires or checklist. Okay, pagka correlational naman, we are taking care of the relationships. From the word co-relation, ang ibig sabihin ng co means two, dalawa. So you are comparing two things. Okay, you are correlating, and then you are using statistical tools to determine the relationship. And actually, and it is, by the way, it can be represented in a graphical representation. Okay. So, wala nang tanong. Okay, if you have questions, you'll just type the questions below and I will answer you, or you just PM me with regards to your questions. And sa next na video natin, bibigyan ko kayo ng mga answers to your questions. Okay, so the next thing na gagawin natin after we had our what we call the research designs is you will decide on the sampling. Okay, decide on the I should say decide on the data gathering procedure na gagawin natin. Okay, so when it comes to data gathering procedure, pumapasok dyan yung ating what type of sampling procedures will be used. Okay, so when we talk about sampling, we are dealing with the process of taking samples for analysis. So we will decide. Okay, by the way, balikan natin ano ba itong sample, kasi sampling. Okay, so when we talk about sampling, we are talking about, okay, tingnan nyo itong image natin, di ba? Pumupunta tayo sa mall, tayo ay kumukuha ng samples. Kunwari, sample ng noodles, sample ng kape, sample ng biscuits, ang tinitikman natin. And pag tikman na natin na, uy, masarap, then we will decide na bumili ng produkto. Okay, but in research, when we talk about sample, these are the population. These are taken from the population. Okay, for the purpose of representation. So in other words, the sample represents the population. Okay, now when we talk about the types of sampling, dalawang klase lang. We have the probability and we have the non-probability sampling. Pag sinabi nating probability, ang tinutukoy natin dyan, it is more probable. Pag sinabi nating probable, ibig sabihin, most likely it will happen. Okay, non-biased ito kasi usually mas credible. Okay, but or probably it is a non-biased type of sampling. Pero pag sinabi naman natin non-probability, okay, it is a biased type of sampling. So later on makikita natin kung bakit na biased ito maya-maya. Okay, puntahan muna natin itong probability sampling. So when we talk about probability sampling, it has different types. We have the random, we have the systematic, we have the stratified, and we have the cluster type of sampling. So tingnan natin itong mga different types of sampling. So we have the simple random sampling. Ang ibig sabihin ng random sampling, every member of the population will have an equal chances to be picked. So ibig sabihin, kukuha lang tayo doon. at random. Kung sino yung makita natin, kung sino mapulot natin. Okay? Kagaya ng halimbawa sa mga raffle na kung saan naglalagay ng mga papel sa tambyolo and then bubunot ng isa. Okay? And then, in other words, everybody has the chance to win. Okay. When we talk about systematic sampling, gumagamit tayo ng intervals. So, halimbawa, kada 10, kukuha tayo ng isa. Or kada 50, kukuha tayo ng isa. Okay? Pwede rin i-arrange natin yung height ng students. Okay, from the shortest to the tallest, kada 3 kukuha ng isa. Okay? Or i-alphabetize ang mga pangalan and then kada 10 kukuha ng isa. Okay, based on their order. Okay, so may sistemang ginagamit. Now, pag sinabi naman nating stratified, it came from the word strata. Ang ibig sabihin ng strata, group. Okay, so in other words, gumagawa tayo ng group and then from that group, kukuha tayo ng sample. So, paano yan? Halimbawa, papag-aralan natin yung mga isang grupo ng mga kabataan. So, pwede tayong gumawa ng group dyan. So, halimbawa, yung bubuo tayo, grupo ng mga ages 16 to 17, grupo ng mga 18 to 19, grupo ng 15 years old and below. So, we have created a group na pag-aaralan natin. Okay? When we talk about cluster, we are talking about grupo. So, may na-establish na group. Let's say, sa isang grupo ng grade 7, isang grupo ng grade 8, isang grupo ng grade 9. Okay? So, there is an existing group or there is an existing cluster at doon tayo kukuha ng ating mga samples. Okay? So, wala na sigurong problem dyan. Now, we'll proceed to the next. We have the non-probability sampling. So, una, we have the quota. So, when we talk about quota, we are setting a limit to the number of samples. So, we are setting a higher or a lower limit. So, for example, papag-aralan natin ang mga chefs. So, ang study ko is all about the best chefs who knows how to cook adobo. Na kukuha ako ng limit, 10 chefs lang ang aking kukunin. Okay? Ngayon, we can also have another type of sampling, yung voluntary. Okay? It is usually ginagamit ito sa mga experimental research, halimbawa sa vaccines. Okay, hindi naman lahat gusto pag-aralan na siya yung pagpapraktisan ng mga bakuna, okay, for the sake of the whole population. Okay, so voluntary. Purposive, bias na bias yan, papag-aralan ko lang ang gusto kong pag-aralan. And then, availability, kung ano lang yung available, yan lang yung papag-aralan natin. Okay. Paano yan? So, halimbawa, you will be studying something or somebody, or your study is all about cancer. Now, so, in other words, ang papag-aralan mo is yung mga cancer patients. Pero, hindi naman lahat ng population ay may cancer. So, kung ano lang yung available or kung sino lang yung available, so yun lang yung papag-aralan natin. Okay? And, of course, when we talk about snowball, ibig sabihin, hindi mo madedetermine kung ano dami ang iyong papag-aralan. Magsa-start ka muna sa 2, tapos magdadagdag ka na naman, palaki ng palaki. Okay, so tingnan natin itong example na nandyan sa ano natin, sa screen. Okay. Now, next. So, na-determine na natin ang ating type of sampling. Paano natin kukunin ang ating samples. Now, the next step is we will determine the validity and reliability. Di ba sabi ko kanina, dapat malaman natin yung appropriateness ng sampling natin. So, dito na pumapasok ang validity and reliability. So, when we talk about validity, or let us go back first with the meaning of what is valid. So, when we talk about valid, the word valid, it means reasonable or justifiable. Okay, kaya pag i-define natin ang validity, it is the extent to which an instrument measures what is supposed to measure and performs as it is designed to perform. Okay, so ibig sabihin, akma ang ating instrument. Ano bang instrument? When we talk about instrument, we are talking about our data gathering tool, kagaya ng ating questionnaire. Okay? So, ang ating questionnaire ba ay akma na gamitin. So, tinitingnan natin kung pwede o hindi pwede. Okay, so sa anong paraan? So, may tinitingnan tayo dyan. Okay, so there are 2 types of validity. We have the internal and external. Okay, labas at loob. Okay. Now, when we talk about internal validity, ang tinitingnan natin dyan lagi is all about our questionnaire. So, yung questionnaire ba natin ay akma? Mini-measure ba niya ang ating nais pag-aralan? Okay, so anong basihan natin dyan? Ang basihan natin dyan actually, yung tinitingnan namin, or tinitingnan natin lagi dyan, is the statement of the problem, or is it valid? Kasi nasasagot ba niya lahat ng problema natin na nabanggit sa ating statement of the problem. Okay. Now, when we talk about external validity, we're talking about the samples. Okay. Sa ating image dyan, naglagay ako ng isang drum of water, or it is a drum filled with water. So, this drum, may ano yan, mainit ang kanyang laman na fluid. Ngayon, for example, you want to determine, for example, the temperature of water inside the drum. So, gaano ba karami ang kukunin nating samples? Okay? Yung samples ba na binigay natin, is it enough to represent the whole population? Now, tingnan natin kung ang ginamit nating measuring tool is enough. For example, isang kutsarita, is it enough to measure the temperature of water inside the drum? Siyempre, kukuha ka ng isang kutsara doon, and then maglalagay ka ng thermometer, ilalagay mo doon sa kutsara, measurein mo yung temperature ng tubig na nasa kutsara. Kung anong nakuha natin doon, it will represent the temperature of the whole drum. Pwede ba yon? Okay, sinong nagsabing pwede? Sino bang nagsabi na hindi? Okay, ngayon, definitely, it may not be enough kasi lalamig na agad yung tubig doon sa kutsara, kaya hindi natin makukuha most likely kung ano ang temperature na nandun sa drum. So, in other words, mas marami, mas reliable or mas valid, I should say. Okay? So, ngayon, kino-compute natin yan. Kung gaano karami ang samples na kukunin. Okay? At dito rin pumapasok ang term na reliability. So, when we talk about reliability, we are talking about how consistent a method measures something. So, gaano ba ka-consistent ito? So, kasi ang research kasi, pag ginawa natin ito, may sumunod. For example, sa ating yapak, papag-aralan nila yung ating research, they will most likely obtain the same results kung gagawin nila uli yung ating research. Ngayon, kung same results ang nakukuha ng mga researchers over and over again, then we can say that our research is reliable. Okay. May nagtanong sa akin, ano bang gagawin natin dito sa ating sample questionnaire na nasa module? Okay. That sample questionnaire na nasa module is only your guide. So, mapapansin natin na meron itong letter to the respondents. So, gagawa kayo ng letter to the respondents. So, pwede kayong gumawa ng sarili nyo, or you can fill the blanks. Fill only the blanks. I-follow nyo lang ang template na nandyan. Okay, so pero not necessarily na ganun. Okay? The next part is the instrument. Okay. So the next part is the instrument. Yan yung instrument na gagamitin natin. Ang tanong, parehong-pareho ba yan, sir, sa gagawin namin na research? Questionnaire, ganun na ganun ba, kukopyahin na lang namin? Okay, ang sagot, depende. Depende sa inyong statement of the problem. And I will discuss that to you sa ating next na video. Okay, kasi kulang na yung oras natin para sa time na ito. Ngayon, if you have questions, kindly message me, and then sa next na video natin, I will answer your queries, yung mga questions ninyo. Okay, so again, thank you very much, and see you next time. God bless us all.